Hello everyone, my name is Sushil Mate and I am Regional Innovation and Private Partnership Advisor for the DRC Middle East region. In my today's Green Talk, I would like to share some of the new approaches and technologies for farming in dry and desert context. And I'll try to focus more on rationale behind this technology and try to explain it in very simple and logical manner. So in my today's Green Talk, I'll briefly touch upon the climate and geographical conditions in dry or desert region. Then I'll try to highlight the key components required for the growth of plant. Then I'll briefly share you the approach which I have adopted for decoding these new technologies. And then finally, we will be discussing few new technologies for farming in dry or desert region. The Middle East is mostly dry land. Dry land consists of either desert or arid land. Globally, around 41% of land area on Earth is considered as a dry land, and shockingly, around 90% of Arab land is considered as a dry land. So, the mostly dry land is water scarce region because the rate of evaporation is much higher than the rate of precipitations or the annual rainfall in this region. And also, the soil type in desert is mostly sandy, which absorbs very less or no water. And on top of that, the fact is that due to climate and environmental changes, the rate of desertification is increasing day by day. So, in a nutshell, the desert is characterized as a high amount of sunlight or heat and very low availability of water. Now we have understood the climatical and environmental conditions in dry and desert region. Now let's try to understand what are the key components plants required for a healthy growth before we talk about some new technologies for plants in dry region. Plants mainly produce their food through the process of photosynthesis, and photosynthesis is nothing but a kind of chemical reactions takes place inside the plant. And for the photosynthesis, plants need these four elements from the nature or from the environment. And these are mainly sunlight, which is nothing but the source of energy. Second is the carbon dioxide, which plant extracts from air. Third is water. And the fourth and most important is the nutrients, which plants mainly absorb from the soil. So these are the four components which are needed for healthy growth of plant. Now, based on key components for plant growth, I have tried to decode new technologies around these four components. Classification of new technologies around these key components would help in understanding the rationale behind each technology and also its contribution to the growth of plant. In this talk, I'll briefly touch 6 to 7 new methods or technologies for farming in desert. During the discussion on each technology, I'll try to explain the logic, how it works. I'll try to show a couple of pictures related to these technologies to explain in a better way. And also, I'll try to highlight the pros and cons of each technology in a very short manner. And also, I would suggest do pay attention here to understand the diagrammatic view of all these technologies and its contribution for the plant growth. Now let's start with the first method, which is a greenhouse method, and it is one of the most simplest method. It has derived its name from the greenhouse effect. So basically the greenhouse is the structure made up of roof and wall, mainly from the transparent material like glass, plastic sheets. So what it does is it regulates the internal environment plants to grow and protects the plant from the external harsh environmental conditions. It is used in extreme hot as well as in cold conditions, and in market there are range of designs available for the greenhouse depending upon the local requirement. So let's understand how the greenhouse works in a very simple and logical manner. For instance, if it is my small piece of land, let's assume it, and if it is in a hot condition, so chances of survival of these plants would be very low. So to protect these plants from the environmental conditions, so assume this is my greenhouse. So this is basically a plastic structure which protects these plants from the external harsh environmental conditions or the hot conditions, and also it somewhere regulates the internal environment for the plants to grow. So this is how the greenhouse effects works, and definitely these kind of greenhouse or the greenhouse methods increases the production, the plant production, but it also requires some initial investment to be set up for the infrastructure. Now let's see the second method, which is drip irrigation method. As name suggests, the irrigation here is drip by drip. There are two main types of drip irrigation seen in the field. First is surface-based drip irrigation method, where the drip is provided on the surface near to the plant, and the second is subsurface-based drip irrigation method, where drip is provided near to the roots of the plants. Now let's try to understand the drip irrigation method in a very simple logical manner. Uh, let's again assume this is a small piece of land which I have, and if I go with the conventional method of irrigation, then I have to provide irrigation on an entire piece of land, which is again requires a lot of water, and also it will increase the rate of evaporation. So the water losses would be more if I go with the conventional method of irrigation in dry and hot condition on this surface. So what drip irrigation method does, so assume if it is a drip, so if there are 12 plants in this piece of land, so drip will be provided on near to those 12 plants only. So this is basically a targeted method of irrigation, and it reduces the loss of water from the surface, and also it is a more efficient use of water by use of drip compared to the normal the traditional method of surface-based irrigation method. So definitely this system is more efficient compared to the traditional method, but to set up a drip system uh, in the field or in the farm, it requires some initial investment. So we need to consider that investment also. Now let's see the third technique, which is wick-based irrigation. As name suggests here, irrigation is by the application of wick. Application of wick helps in setting up capillary actions to irrigate the plant's roots. It is also known as self-irrigation or self-watering technique because the application of wick makes the soil moist continuously. So that's why it is also called self-watering or self-irrigation technique. Now let's understand how it works. Let's assume this is my plant, and this is a wick system which is connected to the roots of the plant, and you can see this is the plant and this is the soil, and the wick system is connected to the roots of the plant. Now if I insert this wick into the my water reservoir, so this wick will establish a capillary action, and it will continuously keep the soil or the roots wet continuously. So that's why it is also called automated or self irrigation method. This is also one of the most efficient method because it reduces the various losses due to evaporation, and also it is very targeted approach for irrigation. But definitely it needs some initial planning and setup to start the wick irrigation system, but that's not a very costly. So this can be also used as a one of the method for self-watering and in conditions like dry and deserted conditions. Now let's talk about the fourth method, which is hydroponic system. And hydroponic system is much talked about these days. So the hydroponic by definition is method of growing plants in a water-based nutrient-rich solution. And hydro basically means water here. So the hydroponic system is soil-less growing of plants, and the roots are basically supported by using inert medium. There are many different hydroponic systems available in the market, from home-based hydroponic system to large-scale industrial hydroponic system. So let's try to understand the basic logic behind the hydroponic system. So this is a very simple hydroponic system. If you see the roots of the plants are inserted directly into the water, and this water is basically a nutrient-rich solution. So the plants directly absorbs nutrients from the water, and that's how the plants grow. And this is a very simple logic behind the hydroponic system. But in actual practice, the water is basically circulated through the pumps, and there's a continuous circulation of water and mixing of nutrients as per the requirement of plants. But the basic logic behind the hydroponic system is same. The water is nutrient rich, and the plants directly absorbs nutrients from the water instead of soil. With these methods, plants can grow anywhere, and by maintaining a controlled environment, it requires very less space and less water compared to normal gardening system. As per some studies, it says that the hydroponic system requires 20 times less water than soil-based gardening system. However, installing the hydroponic system is not cheap and it requires continuous supervision to run the system, and it also depends on the power availability if we are talking about the large scale hydroponic system. And if you see the diagram above and the components which I have mentioned, so all the basic components required for growth of plants are supported by hydroponic system, including air, light, water, and the nutrients. And that's why these hydroponic systems are getting much popularity these days, and many organizations and industrial bodies are trying hydroponic system at different level. Now let's discuss fifth technology, which is aquaponic system. So the basically aquaponic system is growing of plants with aquatic life. Here the advantage of the system is that waste from fish produces natural bacteria that converts waste like ammonia into nitrates, and plants absorb these nitrates as a source of rich nutrients. So it is beneficial for plants to grow from the waste of fish, and also when plants absorb these nitrates from water, it cleans the water, which helps fish to grow again in the water. So that is kind of symbiotic relation with fish and plant established in the aquaponic system. So let me try to give you a very simple logic behind the aquaponic system. So it is similar to a hydroponic system where you have a plant and you have a water where plant absorb nutrients from the water. But apart from that plant, in aquaponic system, there's also fish which also survives in the water. So if you see, these are the fishes for the demonstration which I'm putting in the water. And this is a kind of aquaponic system where the waste from the fish, the basically nitrates are absorbed by the plant roots, and also the plants clean the water by absorbing the nitrates, and it's good for fish to survive in such water. So this is basically a kind of symbiotic relation between plants and aquatic life, and this is the logic behind the aquaponic system. In an aquaponic system, water is well used resource because the water supports both aquatic life as well as the growth of plant, and the water usage is twice better than the any other system. It has dual benefit because it grows fish, it produces fish as well as the plants also. So in that way, it has a dual benefit of using the aquaponic system. But aquaponic system is relatively more complex because it is having aquatic life as well as the plant life, and it is more complex than any other system available to grow the plants. And starting the aquaponic projects requires little higher investment to set up this system and to set up the infrastructure. But this system has a dual advantage. Now let me share you sixth and very interesting method of growing plants. And the system or the method is called aeroponic system. So the basically aeroponic system is the process of growing plants in air or mist environment condition without use of soil. So let me demonstrate you the simple logic how this system works and how the plants grow in aeroponic system. So this is my plant and these are the roots, and this is the system where the plant grows. You see there's no water, there's no nutrient rich medium inside the plants. So the basically the roots are always in air and not in direct contact with the nutrient rich medium. So the basically mist which provides nutrients to these plants are sprayed or provided on regular basis. So you see, this is my nutrient solution, and through the mist, the nutrients are sprayed on the roots of the plants, and that's how these plants get their nutrients through the air or maybe through mist condition, and that's how these plants grow. So the aeroponic system utilizes very less water and it's very efficient system for growing plants when you have a scarcity of water. But it requires controlled environment and regular supervision to grow plants or to farm in aeroponic system. Well, seventh and last method which I'm going to share with you is seed bombing. Seed bombing is a practice of introducing vegetation to land by throwing or dropping seed balls. It was made popular by green movements such as guerrilla gardening as a way. to practice active reforestation. Seed balls are generally made up of compost, clay, and seeds. These balls contain basic nutrients for plants to germinate and capable of surviving few days by own till it starts germinating. It is suitable for large-scale afforestation and greening the land, but conversion rate, which is number of seeds thrown versus number of seeds grown, is sometimes a question mark. However, with new technologies like seed bombing via drone are very efficient and showing really good results in many parts of the world. So these were just few technologies and methods which I have shared with you, but there are many such technologies exist in different part of the world, and these technologies are evolving day by day. But understanding the logic behind such technologies would equip us to customize and further innovate for our context. Generally, it is perceived that such technologies are very costly and requires a lot of investment and expertise. It is true in some sense, but these technologies can always be demystified for our context and can be made affordable for the masses. I hope you are aware that when first mobile was introduced, it was considered very high-end technology and it was not affordable to many segments in our society. But now it is most affordable commodity in our society, and many refugees and displaced population owns very good and high-end mobile phone. So is the case of these technology. If we try to explore it early, the better the chances of adoption for our operations. So going forward, I would suggest context-based exploration of these technologies, co-creation and customization of such technologies for our context, collaborating with right partners to adopt and learn about these technologies. I would encourage to do small pilots to these technologies in our context. And finally, learning is by doing and learning is by sharing. So keep exploring and experimenting these technologies for our context and for our operations. Well, lastly, I would be very happy to discuss these technologies further and to support customization of these technologies for our field operations. Till the time, keep thinking green, keep innovative, and I hope you enjoyed this green talk. And it's time to say bye bye.